Welcome. Welcome everybody to our Planning Committee meeting for the 8th of July. I would like to welcome members of the Planning Committee, officers and members of the public in attendance at today's meeting. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be watching this meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I would remind all participants that this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. As this technology and the way of working is new to us all, I would ask participants to be patient with the technology and with one another, being mindful that those in attendance will all have their own unique circumstances during this national emergency. Please would all participants note the following procedures for the meeting that I intend to follow as their chairman. Please could all attendees mute their microphones when not speaking, which will reduce feedback and background noise. Similarly, please remember to unmute when I invite you to speak. Please switch off any other device such as a mobile phone or put it onto a silent setting for the duration of this meeting. Please only speak when invited to do so by me as chairman, introducing yourself to the meeting. Those in attendance to indicate that you would like to speak, please send the message RTS, request to speak, using the Skype conversion facility. Please only use this facility to indicate that you would like to speak, and note that all attendees can view messages via this facility. Please could all attendees refer to the relevant report number and page number when speaking, so there is a clear understanding of what is being discussed at all times. When members need to vote on a planning application, I will call each member to vote in turn. Please express your vote verbally with for, or against, or abstain. A recorded vote will not be reflected in the minutes of the meeting unless this is requested in accordance with normal procedures. In accordance with the government's regulations regarding virtual meetings and remote participation, all participants must be able to hear and be heard by all attendees. When voting, I ask, I'm going to have to put my glasses on. When voting, I ask that all members of the Planning Committee do so in the acknowledgement that they have heard the full debate and can therefore vote in accordance with the regulations. In the event of any technical problem, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. Please bear with us in these circumstances. If an individual loses connection and the meeting can practically continue with a quorum, it will do so. For the benefit of all participants and those viewing the meeting, I will now call the name of each member of the Planning Committee and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at this meeting. Please note that we have had a change in the Planning Committee membership since the agenda was published. It was agreed at full council on Monday that Councillor Michael Thierry would sit on the committee in place of Councillor Janet Duke. Welcome, Councillor Thierry. It's good to have you back. As I previously mentioned, I am Christine Ward, Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I will now go to the roll call. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Councillor Sue. Councillor Sue Bennett.
Yes, I'm attending.
We're getting an echo from somebody. Councillor Hilary Brand. I'll come back to Hilary. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Cressell.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Alan Glass.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Present.
Councillor Joe Riley.
And
Councillor Tony Ring.
thank you, Chair. Present.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Michael Thierry.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And we have apologies, I believe, from Councillor Beverly Thorne and Councillor Malcolm Wade. So can I just go back to Councillor Hilary Brand? Are you here?
I don't think she is here, no.
Okay, fine. We'll move on then. I will now ask the officers to introduce themselves, starting with our Chief Planning Officer.
Good morning, members. I'm Claire Upton Brown and I'm the Chief Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Andrew Kinghorn, Legal Advisor.
Thank you.
Karen Wardle, Democratic Services.
Thank you.
Matt Wisdom, Democratic Services.
Okay. Do we have Andy Rogers?
He's not in attendance this morning.
Okay. So we'll go to Judith Garrity.
Judith Garrity, Development Control Team Leader.
Thank you. Kate Cattermole.
Kate Cattermole, Development Management Case Officer.
And Dean Brunton.
Dean Brunton, Planning Performance Team Leader.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies other than Councillor Beverly Thorne and Councillor Malcolm Wade?
No, we don't, but I think Councillor Brand has just joined the meeting. I don't know if you want to ask her to speak.
Can you confirm you're here, Councillor Brand?
Yes, I am. I apologise.
Thank you very much
for being late.
Thank you. I will now ask each member whether you have any interests. I'll start with myself for 20/101467 and as a councillor of New Milton Town Council but not on planning.
I like to declare an interest in 20/10467. I'm on the New Milton Town Planning Committee. I will not speak or take any votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more declarations of interest? Are there any for Fording Bridge?
Because both of us are not on the town council.
Right, okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll now go to our first application. And this is Land of Victoria Cottage, Victoria Road, Milford-on-Sea, application 20/10492. And you'll find that on page 11 of the agenda. We do have some speakers, but before that, we'll go to the presentation. And Judith Garrity, would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to land at Victoria Cottage, Victoria Road, Milford-on-Sea. The proposal is to demolish the existing property and to erect 2 new dwellings. This is the application site outlined in red. Properties to the east along Victoria Road are detached properties, as are properties to the north. To the west and south of the site are flatted blocks. This is the Ordnance Survey Plan. This is the existing plan, but members should note that the front extension has not yet been built. so the current property doesn't actually look the same as on this plan. This is the proposed development, which is to demolish the existing property and erect 2 plots in its place, as you can see on the block plan. This is the layout plan showing the 2 properties, which would be identical, 4 parking spaces on the front and associated landscaping. These are the plans and floor plans. This is the street scene elevation. Members may recall this site was considered in committee in May and February of this year. These previous schemes were for the erection of a dwelling to the side and retention of the existing Victoria cottage on the site. One of these schemes is now at appeal. Just for reference, the previous reason for refusal related to it being a cramped and unsympathetic form of development, out of character with the area, the scale of the proposed development and the narrow plot width. This is a comparative plan that shows the proposed scheme at the top and the most recent previous scheme at the bottom, showing this one shows the existing dwelling and then the side, and these are 2 new dwellings. The difference now is, as I said, is that the existing cottage would be demolished. This is the front photograph of the front of the existing dwelling, showing the flatted blocks I referred to. This is the rear of Victoria Cottage. This is the side of Hurst Court. This is the street scene, and this is looking east along Victoria Road. I have a couple of further plans. This is a street scene showing the previous refuse schemes, this one here at the top and at the bottom, and that was the existing. A comparative footprint plan prepared by the applicant on the previous refuse scheme. Illustrative elevations of the refuse scheme and the refuse scheme that is now subject of the current appeal. The officer's view is the current proposal has not addressed the previous concerns, and the recommendation remains to refuse on a cramped and unsympathetic form of development out of character with the area by virtue of its scale and the proposed narrow plot width. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from members for the officer, please? Councillor Arthur Davies.
Hi, question, Judith. Is there an update on the ecologist report appraisal?
Thank you. An ecology report has now been submitted. Most of the matters within it can be dealt with by condition. If the application was approved, there would be one point of clarification in terms of bat roosts, but that can be easily dealt with if the application was subsequently approved, or if there was a subsequent appeal. Thank you.
Just I wonder if you could elaborate on the proposal would be out of character with the area. I wonder if you could fill me in a bit, because there's big blocks of flats at the side of it. I wonder how you equate that it's out of character. Is that a genuine question?
Thank you. I'll just go back to the street scene plan. The main issue is the narrowness of the plots in relation to others along that road. The plot widths are about 9 metres compared to others along the road which are wider. So that is the main concern in relation to it being out of character. And I accept your point about the flats to the side and the rear, but the character of the remaining part of that road and to the north is of wider, more spacious plots, and our view is that it would remain out of character with that.
Thanks very much for the clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Hilary Brand.
Yes, I'd just like to confirm, are we able to go back to the picture with the 2 houses on it, like the photograph?
Which one? Have you got a number on your slide?
I didn't take a number, sorry.
So a photograph, this one?
No, there was one with an actual sort of what it would look like last time.
Oh, last time.
You put up just a moment ago. I just wanted to clarify. The previous time it came, it's okay, don't worry.
It's slide 30.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Time it came, they were going to That's it. Thank you, Sue. They were going to extend the current property.
Councillor Brand, we're losing connection, sound connection.
And build a new. Now they're going to knock down the current property and build. Hear me?
No. Can I come back to you, because that was totally broken up? I'll come back to you. Let me go to Sue Benison first.
Thank you, Chairman. My question was about the environment report as well, but perhaps if you could show chart, I'm just getting the number, chart 15, that actually shows the layout of the other properties in the area, and if you look at the red square, that would be divided in two. There was a question about the flats being next door and why, if we divided this into two plots, that would be unacceptable. Looking at the plots on the opposite side of the road and those going down the road, you can see that they're all pretty wide, and this would be a deviation from the normal plot width. Just wanted to draw that attention to members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Benison. I'll try Councillor Hilary Brown. Would you like to try your question again?
No, that's fine. I think it's been answered by what Sue was just saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kate Crizell.
I just wondered from the officer, is it possible to say how much more space between the two buildings that are proposed now compared to the last application? Is it significantly different?
The current proposal would have a 1.9 metre gap between them. The previous application, if I just go back to the plan that shows the illustrative, it is of a similar width, comparable. So the existing property to remain would obviously be a wider frontage, but the separation between the two properties would be very similar as on this comparative plan. I can measure that in detail if you want me to.
No, that's good enough.
Okay,
I'm looking at that 22. It looks like the space around the outside of each building is more or less the same as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Hawkins.
Yes, what I would like to bring to the attention of the officer is you talk about the street scene. Well, the other end of Victoria Road, which you haven't mentioned in the street scene picture that showed us, was not. There was a care home there. The number was 09/93619. You knocked down a care home, built 6 modern houses with little to no side access, paths on the same road as the proposal. Now, you didn't say that was cramped, so I think, I can't see where you say that this is cramped and that particular one isn't cramped. So if you're calling the Victoria Road at the far end not cramped, you've got to say that this isn't cramped. I think, the street scene is all higgledy-piggledy, different size buildings, flats, houses. I can't see that this would make any difference to the street scene. In fact, it will finish it off quite nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Thank you. I have nobody else indicating that they want to speak. So I'll go to Mr. Steve Dench, who is the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Dench. Would you like to go ahead with your 3 minutes?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you.
The opportunity to present the scheme to you. I do need to make some corrections in the 1 minute at the end, because the dimensions referred to by the officer are wrong, and they're incorrect. Also, on plate number 22, page 24, which is on the screen now, the officer has distorted the scales of the drawing, and the proposal is much less at the front and much less at the back than the previous refusal. So there's some inaccuracies in reporting here. The suggestion that the design would appear cramped does not reflect the character of Milford-on-Sea. It demonstrates a very wide range of residential design characters, styles and densities of development. There's no demonstrable harm to anything, anyone, or the street scene. It's an improvement. We've passed a wealth of evidence of nearby sites in Milford to the council, and these are comparative. These are exact in principle, concept and design. We urge you to look at this further, discuss it more, and take the advice that we've had from the Chief Planning Officer and Mr. Steve Clothier that 2 new builds on the site is the way forward, which is exactly what we've done. And also referring to the buildings at the other end of the street and the plot widths, they are comparable. Building up to the boundary is all over the street on the other side of the road. There are 1 metre pathways. This is typical of the road. In regards to the dimensions, there's an extra foot width between the properties than the previous application. They're not similar, as was reported. Respectfully ask that you approve this scheme. Thank you very much. Any questions, by all means?
Thank you, Mr. Dench. Members, do you have questions for Mr. Dench? Councillor Davies.
Good morning, Mr. Dench. Thank you for that. I just wondered, hello, just scratching my head here. I'm trying to work out why you've put 2 different applications in for the same plot. I mean, it can be quite confusing. I just wondered what your thoughts on that for why have you put these 2 different applications through at the same time?
Well, we're trying to establish what we can do with our house and either extend it, knock it down and rebuild it, build a new house on the side. Our original intention was to self-build a modern, beautiful piece of architecture that we could live in. We're self-builders, we're architects. I trained as a bricklayer, and I'm also trained as a carpenter as well as an architect. And we like to self-build, we like beautiful architecture, and, you know, we could have done something that was much worse, we were told, that we would get away with, like something at the end of the street, like a modern developed box building. But we didn't want to do that. You know, it would cost us less. And, you know, this thing about, you know, we were told that it should be refused because we're developers by one of the officers. You know, it's just not right. You know, we're just people who are living in Milford, want to create a beautiful piece of architecture, and that's it. You know, we just want to live here. You know, we've got family in the area, family in Milford, family in Lymington. You know, we're not big developers. A big developer would do a lot worse scheme than this. So we're boxed into a corner. We can't go anywhere, you know, and there's no support. We're doing beautiful architecture. I've got a first-class degree in architecture. I trained at Bauhaus in Dessau. And I know modern architecture, I know buildings, I know planning. And, you know, that's it really. Sorry for ranting on, but
no, as much information as possible we like on the committee. You don't have to answer this question, I'm probably out of order. Which one do you prefer? 2B or 2A?
No, Councillor Davis, I'm not going to allow that question.
I thought you weren't.
I've got Councillor Anne Corbridge waiting to speak, but can I go to Claire Upton Brown first, please?
Thank you, Chair. I feel I must come in at the point because your speaker has made an accusation about one of the planning officers and claimed that a planning officer had said to him that planning permission wouldn't be granted because he was a developer. That is quite a serious accusation, and I'm confident that none of the planning officers would say that to an applicant. So Andrew might want to comment further, but members, I suggest that you disregard the comment that's been made by that speaker to you this morning.
Thank you, Claire, for that clarification. I'll go back now to Anne Corbridge, Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to ask you, so you have the 2 applications before us today, and from what I'm hearing, you are going for a kind of go for broke here. So you've put in 2 different applications, obviously in the hopes that one of them will go through. But my question to you is that they're quite different applications in many ways, because obviously there's 2 houses in one and a very enhanced large house in the other. Can you sort of, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm quite curious because obviously there's a different end result. Are you able to kind of throw any light on that?
Mr. Dench?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You're asking a question.
Did you not hear the question?
Was it addressed to me?
Yes.
I'm very sorry. I didn't get the question. Would you be kind enough to repeat it or press it?
Of course, yes. What I was saying is that these, I understand where you're coming from in putting in 2 applications in the hopes that one of them will actually be approved. But my question is that they're very different applications. I mean, one is for 2 properties, obviously, and one is for one kind of large enhanced property. And I'm just curious really as to if you have any kind of comments to make on that. I would understand it if it was like 2 applications on a similar theme, but to have 2 houses in one and one in the other, I'm mystified really.
Okay, well, basically, the preference is for 2 houses rather than to extend one. And we're in a fallback position of extending an alternate house with the approvals that are already granted and under construction. But if we have to knock down if, for instance, the 2 new builds were granted, we would have to then knock down and take out the foundations that are already in for the extended property, which, that's so be it. So, ideally, we'd like to go for 2 new builds because, it fits the street scene. And I think both schemes are compliant with policy, and both schemes don't harm the neighbours. They improve the street scene vastly in terms of that currently exists and the flatted blocks. And I would emphasise as well that there's no harm to any neighbours, that there's no harm to highway safety, there's no harm to ecology. When a built-up area of vast car park, tarmac blocks of small garage lots. So, we've been pushed into a position where just trying to improve our living, our home, self-build a new building to live in new build construction. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but it's just the way it is, I suppose, that, 2 new builds is ideal way forward. Not ideal for finances, but, just got to take out foundations that are already in. But then again, I believe both comply with policy. There's more space between limestones and plot 1 because we'd be taking out part of that roof. There's an improvement to limestones. There's a 2-metre gap between the buildings, between plot 1 and plot 2, which is more than adequate.
Mr. Dench,
There's a vast open space to tackle.
Mr. Dench, I think you've answered the question as to why you put in 2 different designs. We already know the measurements around here, but I'm going to go on now because we do have 2 objectors, and I believe that we have a letter that's going to be read out on their behalf. Mr. Kinghorn.
Chairman, yes, thank you very much. The joint statement says as follows. The dominant impact on the local street scene of the proposal for 2 detached houses on the Victoria Cottage site is similar to previous applications that have been refused. The proposal would result in 2 houses that are cramped and unsympathetic to their surroundings. There is no provision for garaging and little scope for storage areas or planting. There are 9 letters objecting to this development and none in support. We oppose this proposed development, and this is from Angus Raby and Judy Gillow, 2 Trees, Victoria Road. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll now go to debate. I'm waiting for names to come up on the screen. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at this, I don't see that it's an awful lot different to things we've had around the area for a long time. It is small, it is a little bit cramped, but then again, we're living in the middle of a city, middle of a town. I personally think it's acceptable and people need to live in the town. Therefore, I would like to propose acceptance for this.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes. Yes, I would second it.
Thank you.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Thank you. I'll go with. Did you want to say something, Councillor Hawkins?
Yes, in seconding this proposal, I am going along with the local parish council who.
We've lost your sound.
Yep, it's all right. I'm back again. Who's been involved in the various planning applications, and they are quite happy to recommend this to us. And I will go, as I'm a it's my ward, I would go along with their saying yes, they're quite happy, and I'm quite happy. I think it's very nicely done. It's two houses that we need houses desperately. We don't necessarily need garages. We've got parking space in the front, and you can easily put a shed in the garden if you want to put your garden bits in there. But I would recommend it to the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Hopkins. Councillor Hopkins. I think we're having some problems this morning.
Sorry, no, that was me. I had to shut the window because they've started some awful noise next door. I'm sorry. I have to support this in every way. The street scene, well, unless you walk up and down there, you will see that it's a variation of all sorts of different old, dilapidated buildings to very modern at the other end that have got no spaces in between. Milford is a mishmash of buildings. We're asked to put up so many houses. The housing state is, getting worse. And this is a chance to put in an extra house and take it off the Milford list. So there's nothing wrong with this build. It's beautiful. I have to say the first one was absolutely gorgeous, but this to me is completely acceptable. You walk along there, and unless you've seen it, you've gone along, I can't see how you can refuse it. And of course the parish council are all for this as well, so I go along with them too. Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Michael Cherry, I have you on here twice. Do you want to speak?
Indeed. Thank you, Chairman. You're most kind. In essence, I would have to say that I support the officers in this particular respect. As I look at the plans, to my mind, this is a contrived and cramped application. It has merit, but unfortunately, it is one of those that we have often had over many, many years of trying to put two into one. And so very often, the end result is not that which we had anticipated as committee members. So I have to say that, in my view, the officers have got this absolutely right, and I would have difficulty, unless I hear anything different, in supporting this particular application. I would just draw two other things, if I may, Madam Chairman. It would be so easy to confuse the two applications, and I believe as members we need to concentrate on the application which is before us, rather than try and dovetail two applications almost into one. And the final point I would like to make is that while the parish council, they're making no comment, and I find that rather unhelpful. I would like to know why, and not at this meeting, but I would like to know why they are recommending permission, because there is no substance to that particular argument forwarded by the Parish Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thierry. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Are we allowed to know exactly where the two objectors reside, Angus Raby and Judith Killow, regarding this application? That's the question.
Chairman, if
sorry.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I was just going to answer that. I did read their statement at the end. They give their address as 2 Trees, Victoria Road.
Thank you very much. And
that's across the road then.
They're quite clear on the plans. Thank you. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. Could we just put up the chart number 15, which I referred to earlier? I think I'm looking at this. I agree totally with Councillor Thierry's opinion on this application. I think this would be a great pity if this site were to be divided into 2. If you look on the opposite side of the street, you've got St Andrews, Pine Cottage, Longcliffe, 2 Trees, which is one of the objectors. 2 Trees is the narrowest plot, but still not as narrow as Victoria Cottage would be if we allowed this application to go through. My question, which is not to be answered today, to the Parish Council is, would they be happy to see St Andrews, Pine Cottage, Longcliffe all divided up, perhaps some into 3 properties? I think this would be the thin end of the wedge if this application were to be granted today, because this would change the look of Victoria Road and the sorts of properties and plot widths that they have in Victoria Road. So I would not be able to vote for the amended recommendation, which is to grant this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Thierry, I have you on there again, but have you said all you need to say?
I've never always said what I want to say, but I don't want to speak again.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. You're picking me up, all right? Yes. Yeah. I was reading through the papers and I went to the bottom of page 14. At the bottom of page 14, it actually says the proposed dwellings would be 2-storey units and accommodation in the roof. And I feel that therefore I can't support it, because I feel that would be quite an overdevelopment, considering there are smaller properties along that road. They would actually stick out like they'll be very tall and not in keeping. So I myself feel, because of that and the fact that trying to put 2 pints into a pint pot, I feel unable to support it. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fellows.
Yes, hello, Chairman. I like the architecture, but I don't like the cramped effects of having the 2 properties on that plot at all. So I won't be able to support this because of that, and I will support the officer's decision.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ring.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself entirely agreeing with Councillors Thierry and Sevier in the sense that we have previously agreed with officers' conclusions, and I see no reason why we should now disagree with them. I do note that there are reported a number of objections and no support from local neighbours, which rather infers that people who live there suspect that the impact will be considerable, and I find myself agreeing with that, and therefore will not support approval.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hawkins again.
Yes, I'd like to come in on some of the remarks being made about you're going to have accommodation in the roof, so therefore the roofs are going to be taller. They are not out of keeping with the rest of the neighbours. It's the same height, so therefore that argument's gone. I think we're getting too nickety-pickety. There might be objectors, but the parish council, have voted for. If you look at the buildings opposite and all around, they're all different. So we've got to look at this as a different planning application and not tied up with anything else. So I feel that this is in keeping with the area.
Thank you. Councillor Mahmood Kangarani, I will come back to you, but first of all, I need to go to Claire Upton-Brown.
Yeah. Yeah, Chairman, I just wanted clarification that with the motion to approve that it was on the grounds that this was an acceptable form of development in keeping with the street scene.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, Chair, for the moment.
Thank you. So I'll go to Councillor Kangarani, please.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I probably understand why on number 2 trees are objecting to this plan, because these tall glass windows may be overlooking into a garden and the house. And also, I would like to say that these open windows are a bit of distraction when you're driving up the road, because you can see inside the house, the wall in the house, or whatever movement inside the house. I have seen an example of that it can be very distracting when you're driving through the road, because suddenly your eyes catches towards these big windows. And also, I'm not sure whether also these windows create reflection if the sun shines on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Firstly, the street scene. Next door to this, we have a block of flats. Quite small flats. We have 2 houses. We don't have the ultra-modern one we were looking at, and also we kept on seeing pictures of. So we have 2 nice-looking small houses. If we cut any of the other sites in half, except for one 4 doors up, they would be much smaller than this site anyway. I can't see anything wrong with allowing people to live in smaller houses, more affordable houses, near the middle of a town. We've got 2 car parking spaces, and I'm very much for my proposal to accept. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got 2 speakers on here, Councillor Maureen Holden and Councillor Barry Dunning, and I'm going to stop the debate after that. I think we've covered it well. So, Councillor Maureen Holden. We can't hear you, Councillor Holden.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Sorry, I've been trying to get in for a while. It is problems, I think. I really totally agree with the officers on this. I think it's contrived, it's cramped, it will not fit in with the street scene, and I do feel that it will cause problems if you have 2 houses put up here. And so I will vote with the officers to refuse this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holding. Councillor Barry Dunning, and then we'll close the debate.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say that I do agree with Councillor Hawkins and Councillor Glass. I note that the Town Parish Council have recommended permission, and therefore I can't see any reason why it shouldn't go ahead. It also provides, of course, an additional house in Leamington, in Milford-on-Sea, and as such, I think that that's a good thing, because we do need housing in Milford. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dunning. We'll come back to you, Mr. Dench, now. You have 1 minute to put your case.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Thank you very much for the debate. Good debate. I don't think there's much more to say really. If you look at the street scene, compare the buildings, look at the blocks of flats, we're doing an amazing, or proposing, if allowed, an amazing piece of architecture that will improve the area, the street scene and the housing numbers. It's lower height than two trees opposite, it's lower height than the flats, and there's more space between limestones with this proposal as well. The room in the roof is just a single crow's nest lookout called the Captain's Watch, which is typical seaside architecture for Milford. It's not bedroom. Please, could we have approval just to self-build a house? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dench. Members, we'll go to the vote, and I just need to remind you that if anybody's had any problems and hadn't seen, for technical reasons, or heard the debate or seen the presentation, then you will need to decide whether you need to vote or not. I don't believe that we've had any technical interference. Seem to have interference at the moment. Right. I have a proposal from Councillor Alan Glass to grant this application, and that's been seconded by Councillor David Hawkins. Can I ask you now, please, to turn off? Can you mute until you speak? Thank you. So, I'm not Councillor. I think that's probably Mr. Dench. Can you mute your mic? Thank you. So we're going to go to the vote, which is the proposal by Councillor Alan Glass to grant this application, seconded by Councillor David Hawkins. So it's for, against or abstain. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Against.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Cressell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Against.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Abstain.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
Against.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Against.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Against.
And I will go against. Can you give me the numbers there, please, Democratic Services?
Hello, Chairman. We have got 8 votes for, 9 votes against and 1 abstention. So that has not carried the motion to accept. So we would need to go back and get another motion.
Okay, thank you. So we'll
Chairman, can I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and refuse this application?
And a seconder?
Yeah, I'm happy to second, Madam Chairman, and Sevier, Councillor Anne Sevier.
So we now go to the recommendation by the officers, which is to refuse, and that's been proposed by Councillor Bennison and seconded by Councillor Sevier. So we'll go to the vote, and this is for refusal. 1 second, please. I dropped my papers. So that's Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand. Councillor Brand? I'll have to come back to Councillor Brand. Councillor Clark?
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge?
Against.
Councillor Kate Crazell?
Against.
Councillor Arthur Davies?
Against.
Councillor Barry Dunning?
Against.
Councillor Alan Glass?
Against.
Councillor David Hawkins?
Against.
Councillor Maureen Holding?
4.
Councillor Christine Hopkins?
Against.
Councillor Kangarani?
Abstain.
Councillor Joe Riley?
Against.
Councillor Tony Ring?
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier?
4.
Councillor Michael Thierry?
4.
And I need to come back to Councillor Brand.
4.
And mine will be 4. So can I go back again for confirmation of the vote, please?
Hello, Chairman. We have got 9 votes for, 8 votes against and 1 abstention, so that carries the motion to refuse permission.
So that has been refused. Thank you. I won't take an adjournment because we have the same speakers for the next application. So the next application is Victoria Cottage again, Victoria Road, Milford, application 20/10483, and that is on page 5 of the agenda. So we'll go straight then for the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the second application for Victoria Cottage to be considered today. I will not go over the site description again, as we've just heard that. This is for a 2-storey side extension. I'll just show the existing street scene, which shows the front elevation as extended. And these were the plans showing the previous approved front plan. The proposal is to extend the property to the side of the dwelling, which would be 6.5 metres wide, giving a total width of the overall property of 15.2 metres. This would provide an extra 2 bedrooms on the site, creating a 5-bedroom property. There will be 4 parking spaces along the front. These are the proposed elevations that would reflect the approved front extension. The main issue is the impact on the street scene due to the width and height of the proposed extension. These are the photographs. This is the existing property, which hasn't yet been extended, Hurst Court, and looking east along the street scene. The recommendation is to refuse due to its width and height and its over-dominant and incongruous feature within the street scene. Thank you, Chairman. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions on this application? Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. Am I understanding correctly that this is to extend the property in line with the application that's been granted? So it's not to extend the property as we're seeing on chart, your chart number 12, as that property looks now. It's to extend it to the previous application, which I think you showed a picture of what it would have looked like in the application we've just dealt with. Perhaps you could show that, could you? Just so we can be clear what this property is going to look like with the extension.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get to the right slide.
I think on the previous one we've just debated, going to try and find the chart myself.
Yeah. I mean, sorry.
Chart 30 of the previous one, that shows the existing property in a new shape. So is this extension going to be on the side of the one that's been granted but not yet built?
That's correct. So the illustrative plan that was provided on the previous one of the previous schemes shows the existing property extended to the front, which was a 2.6 metre front extension at a higher ridge height. So the proposal, if I can just take you back, sorry to flick through the slides again, that would be the existing property as extended, and that was just a plan showing the approval. And then the proposal we've got in front of us now, this is the existing house as extended, and this will be the extension to the side that reflects that style and design. I hope that answers your query.
Yes, it does. And
Thank
just
you.
while I'm asking the question, could you just tell me what the distance would be on both sides from the property to their boundary, both left and right, or east and west, whichever way around you like to describe it?
There would be a 2 metre gap to the east boundary with Hurst Court, and the other boundary would remain as existing with limestones. So I think that's approximately 1 metre to the boundary, and then the adjoining property is further distant than that. So the critical one is 2 metres from Hurst Court. The relationship with the existing property remains.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to clarify that it's the proposed elevation from the east we're looking at, and not the one that keeps on coming up of the new building with the very high window at the front. I think that could be confusing some people looking at this. Just wanted to make that absolutely clear. So could I just have clarification on that, please?
This is the existing approval with the windows on the front, the glazing. This is the new proposal, which is for a side extension to that element, which again does have glazing above an integral garage. So there would be more glazing along there, but this part here that I'm just identifying on the plan on the screen has already been approved.
Yes, I was just trying to clarify. We keep on showing a photograph that also includes another building, the one between that and Hurst Court. I think that does need to be clarified that is not to be built.
No, that was just as a background slide on the previous application, just to indicate to members what had previously been considered. So that isn't part of the consideration here. What we're considering is what we can see here at the proposed street scene is the title of the plan with existing house and then extension shown. So that would be the visual appearance of the proposal.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify those points.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for officers, I will go back to Mr. Dench. You have 3 minutes again, if you wish to speak.
Yes, I do wish to speak. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the proposal to you. The points to consider are the proposed work is designed to be a coordinated, single piece of contemporary considered architecture, which the Parish Council supports. Not an extended butchered piece of poorly designed building work to be perceived as a subservient extension, when there is a vast open car park and space to the west. There is no harm to anyone, any site adjoining. The architecture of multiple peaked roofs is prevalent in the street and the local area. You can't get away from it. The character of the area is not affected. In fact, it's enhanced by coordinated peaked gable ends. These are articulated, stepping inwards and outwards in new build construction. This mirrors and emulates Limestone's and opposite Two Trees house exactly. It's a comparable width to other houses in the street and new builds in the area. There's a vast variation of buildings, designs, architecture throughout Milford. This is next to a car park and a block of flats. Again, this is a single piece of design coordinated architecture by an experienced architect to read as a single new build building. It's an improvement to the area, it's an improvement to the street scene. You can't get away from that. Respectfully ask that this application is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Dench. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Dench from members? nothing more is coming up on my screen. Mr. Kinghorn, of the letter, the objectors, is it the same letter that you read out last time, or is it different?
Chairman, it's different.
Okay, if you'd like to go ahead then.
Mr. and Mrs. Dench have planning permission granted for a front extension to Victoria Cottage, which was unopposed by local residents. They have permissions in place for a rear extension and redevelopment of the garage area under permitted development. As mentioned in the case officer's report, this proposed side extension is of excessive width and dominance for the street scene. A narrower side extension, single story in the garage area would fit better with the surrounding area. We oppose this proposed development. Angus Raby and Judy Gillow, 2 Trees, Victoria Road. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, we'll now go into debate. Councillor Hopkins.
I'm back again, fighting for Milford. I just can't believe that people are objecting all the time. And when you go down the road, you'll see houses wider than this, more in your face than this is going to be. Please, just consider, if you have not been down these streets and you've not seen it, consider how you're voting, please. It is very much in keeping with the Milford street scenes. And eventually, everything's going to be modernised and look like this in time. So I'm all for it, as I was the last one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I feel very sorry for Mr. and Mrs. Dench. We've been talking about this now for, I think, probably a total of about an hour and a half, 2 hours probably overall. I note that the town council or parish council's comment is or recommendation is for permission, and I think anything in front of those block of flats will be an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Sevier. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I must admit, this I feel is a much better design. It reflects, obviously, next door. Obviously, I understand from the officer's point of view, it is a big lump being put onto the side of what is proposed. But I know we have passed many other types of windows in the area around the New Forest, in the New Forest District Council area, which is of a more modern design. At the moment, I cannot see a reason to refuse that I would support. I know it's bigger, but I feel this is much better design. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I 100% agree with all the previous comments from my fellow councillors. I think it's quite a good design. I also can't see any reason why we should refuse this. It's still got a gap between, on the west side, I think it is, the flats. And I think it's a good design, and I think we should approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid I'm going to take an opposing view again. I still think this is too big an extension to add on the side of this property. It will have a built form from one side to the other, which again, if you go back to look at the other houses on the opposite side, they all have larger gaps between the boundaries and the properties. I didn't particularly, the design is subjective. I didn't particularly like the design of this. It's a nice designed house, but I believe in the wrong place. Should be on the seafront or somewhere like that. I don't think it fits in with the surrounding houses. So I will be voting with the officer's recommendation. And in fact, I would like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation, which is to refuse this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Do I have a second?
Chair, if I may, it's Tony Ring. I would be happy to second that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Alan Glass, Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you very much. I totally disagree with the previous proposal, therefore I'd like to speak against it. The street scene we've had, it's too big, it's too small. We get similar objections. First two buildings were too narrow. The next objection is they're too wide. It appears to me that the parish council want it. The people seem to like it. They've done a lot of work on the design. I can't see any reason to hold this back. And I would like to put a counter proposal of acceptance.
We can't do that at the moment. We need to take a vote on the proposal that we already have.
After that, if it does lose, I would like to propose acceptance.
Councillor Anne Bellows, please.
Yes, hello, Chairman. I think the flats are quite ugly, and this design would detract from this, and I would therefore support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michael Thierry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm intrigued by the statement that has been made by a number of councillors to the effect that they see no reason to refuse. I'm assuming they've not read the officers' reports. Had they done so, they would see contained in those reports reasons to refuse this application. So there are reasons to refuse, and to suggest for one moment there are no reasons is to fly in the face of the advice which officers are giving us. In essence, this will be a dominant building in the street scene. There is no other way of describing it. It will be dominant. It will be overbearing, and in many ways it will produce an impressed view of that street scene. I cannot, I'm afraid to say, do anything other than support the officers who, again, I think have judged this absolutely correctly. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to address Councillor Thierry's point, I've certainly read the officers' comments. I know Milford quite well. I go there quite often. I am aware, as I think many of us are, that there are many, many different styles of houses in Milford, and you do scratch your head sometimes and wonder how some of them got planning permission in the first place. This is a lovely design. I'm going to vote for it for all the reasons my councillor colleagues have already put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Hello?
Yes,
you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Right, thank you. I have read the papers and I have read what officers have said, but on balance, I think this is far better than previous applications, and I shall support it because I do think it's a great improvement on what has been offered, and I think it will, even though it is wide, be an improvement on the street scene. And overall, and looking at it and trying to balance things out, I am in agreement with this application, so I shall vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to support officers. Well, I still do support officers, but as I've already seconded the proposal to refuse, essentially, I shall leave my presence at that, please.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Hawkins, have you anything new to add?
Me? Yes, always new. I can't agree with Councillor Thierry about, I think it's a little bit insulting to think that none of us have read the papers. I feel quite hurt, stabbed through the heart. I've read the papers and I've read the recommendations from the officers, and I don't agree with the officers. How the hell can you say that this is bulky when you've got damn great flats all the way around it? No, I'm going to vote for this and side with our parish council. Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Sue Bennison again.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out that although the Parish Council have recommended permission, they have said that they would accept the decision reached by the officers. So they also are not really that swayed on this one, that they want to actually pin their colours to the flagpole, as I would describe it. I also just wanted to say that there have been 6 objections to this one, as there was 9 with the previous one. So the people that live in and around, they don't like it either. But I can see which way this is going to go. I think, unfortunately, it will be granted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Yes, I have to concur with Councillor Hawkins on the fact that we haven't read these papers about the officers. Of course we read them, we study them, and I think it's a little bit rude to say that. But on the fact that people haven't walked around that area, don't really know. I mean, those plans in front of us now, which is number 8, I mean, you haven't got a clue what it's going to look like down there. Have they seen those block of flats there? It's a bit like Belson looking at it, but I think this can only improve the street scene, as I said before, and will help improve the street scene further by people saying, oh, that's nice, let's do ours the same. I just can't see how we can go against it all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got 3 more speakers and I'm closing the debate. I think we've discussed this thoroughly, and I'm just going to go now to Councillor Annie Bellows.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make a comment that I had taken umbrage at Councillor Thierry's comment saying that we haven't read the reports. Of course we have, and that's what we're basing now our decision on. And I do think that was very rude. I just want to make a point of that.
Okay. I've got Councillor Rebecca Clark, and then I'll come back to Michael Thierry. Councillor Clark?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was just, the thought that came to me through the debate was that I think we need to be careful not to make a judgment based on previous history. I've heard some councillors suggest that this is an improvement on a previous application, but we must just look at this as if it was completely on its own. That was my first point. I'm minded to go with the recommendation of the officers, and the parish council again, though not comparing with the previous application, have put very little detail, which doesn't really help us in that regard. So I would like to see the applicant work with New Forest District Council in their pre-application advice in order to submit something which would satisfy all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Some members might not like this, but I'm going to give Councillor Michael Thierry the last talk on this one.
Madam Chairman, certainly I would need to apologise to those of a sensitive nature who have taken umbrage at a statement that I made. It was prefaced, were they to recall, that there were those who said there were no reasons to refuse. And the point that I am making, and made then, is that there are reasons to refuse if you look in the officer's report. That is not saying anything which in any way, in my view, is controversial. It is basically a statement of fact. And if you're offended by what I've said, I do certainly apologise to you. And I assure you I will never take offence at anything you say.
Thank you very much. Well, we definitely are ending this debate. I'll go back to Mr. Dent. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Chairman and Councillors. There's no planning policy to refuse this application on. It's a coordinated piece of modern architecture which has got subjective opinions on. In regards to pre-application advice, we've had advice from the Chief Planning Officer that 2 new builds is the way forward on this side. So, you know, it's obviated pre-planning application advice. They refuse to speak to us as well. They refuse to engage. It's just a battle. It's a very negative battle, and it's just going to continue and continue and continue. But there's no planning policy issue to refuse this on. I would urge councillors to please recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we will now go to the vote. So the recommendation is to refuse. So you're voting for, against or abstain. So on the application which has been proposed by Councillor Sue Benison, seconded by Councillor Tony Ring, to agree with the recommendation to refuse. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Against.
Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Kate Crozell.
Against.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Against.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
Against.
Councillor Alan Glass.
Against.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Against.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Against.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Against.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Against.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
For.
I will give a vote for. I think the against have won that one. Democratic, can you confirm the vote for me?
Could I just confirm whether or not Councillor Kangarani voted against or abstain? I wasn't clear.
I vote against.
Against. Okay, thank you. So I can confirm that we've had 7 votes for, 11 votes against. So that means the motion to refuse permission has not been carried. So we will now need to go back to another motion.
Okay, members, here we go again. So this will be then to grant. And I will need propose. Well, we have them already. What is it?
Alan Glass and David
Alan Glass. Okay, yeah, Alan Glass.
And I seconded it.
Okay, okay. So this is to grant, proposed by Councillor Glass, seconded by Councillor Hawkins. So to grant, for, against, or abstain. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Steve Benison.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crozell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Kangarani.
For.
Councillor Joe Riley.
Against.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For, but I'm presuming we're leaving any conditions to the head of planning because we didn't. I don't know how we.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I finish the vote and then we'll come back to Claire Brown?
Sorry, Chair, if I may, you missed me out. It's Tony Ring.
Sorry, Tony.
Thank you.
For or against?
Against.
Against.
Thank you.
And Councillor Michael Thierry.
Against.
And I will be against. And do you want to come in now, Claire Brown, to say what the conditions would be if we grant this?
So conditions that we would add would be around materials, landscaping. We just need to double check that there isn't any need for obscure glazes in any of the windows. So on the basis of those conditions, unless anybody has any other conditions they'd like added.
Thank you. I think we're happy to leave that to Claire Acton-Brown. So that has been granted. Thank you, members.
Can we have the numbers, please?
Yeah, numbers.
The numbers are, there are 11 votes for, 7 votes against. So it's granted subject to Claire Acton-Brown, Chief Planning Officer, having permission to put relevant conditions onto the permission.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll take, I was going to say a 2-minute break. Do you want a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
Okay, 5-minute break then. Thank you.
Chairman,
Members, we now go to application 20/10551 6 Baytree Gardens, Marchwood. You'll find this on page 27 of your agenda. The case officer for this one is the presentation is going to be with Judith Garrity. We don't have any interest declared on this, so can I just go straight to Judith Garrity for the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This application is before committee because of a parish council request. It is recommended for approval. The application seeks permission for a single-storey side extension, a new boundary wall with landscaping and the use of the land as garden land. The main point of contention relates to the height of the proposed chimney. The site is located on a prominent corner plot larger than most in Baytree Gardens, as you can see on the location plan and also the aerial photograph. This is the block plan showing the proposal in relation to neighbouring properties with 3 Arran Court shown here. These are the existing elevations and the existing floor plans. The proposed side extension would be single storey with a hipped roof and a chimney to the side. The internal layout precludes positioning the chimney against the existing wall of the house, as you can see from the proposed floor plans. The proposed brick boundary wall would be 2 metres from the road, with planting in front to soften its appearance, as you can see on this plan. This is the site viewed from the side in winter without the trees, leaves on the trees. This is the site to be extended. This picture gives an indication of where the chimney would be positioned. This is the picture taken in winter, shows the relationship with 3 Arran Court, with that identified in the red arrow. And this is in summer, with trees providing screening. Here you can see where the extension will be on the side of the building. The boundary wall would be located behind the trees, which are to be retained with the hedge in front. And finally, you can see the site after entering Baytree Gardens from the main road, with an example of another brick boundary wall next to the highway. Thank you, Chairman. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Do I have questions, please, for Judith Garrett? Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not so much a question as a point of clarification. I think our officer said that the chimney would be located on the outside of the property. It's actually going to be located on the outside wall of the extension. And just one other point, slide 61, if you could just show that, the hedge that is shown in that picture would be removed. The wall would roughly take the place of the existing hedge, and then some new hedging would be put on the outside of the new wall. Just to be clear, Chairman. Thank you.
Do you want to come back on that, Judith?
No, I think that's fine. I can clarify that the chimney would be on the side of the extension, and there is some landscaping and hedging. Some of that would be removed and replaced.
Thank you. Councillor Alan
Thank
Glove.
you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The chimney looked to be fairly low in comparison to the buildings. I know that wood-burning stoves produce an awful lot of smoke when they're starting up, and are not recommended now for modern buildings. What's the pollution implication of the chimney being that low? Because I know we've had a lot of trouble around here with low wood-fired burners with low chimneys.
I can just clarify the chimney height will be 4.6 metres. An informal discussion was held with building control who didn't raise an objection, and also within your report the environmental health officer has been consulted and has raised no concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is on the. Sorry, I haven't got COVID. I'm just having a cough. I was drinking some coffee. On the chimney, and though the environmental officer has expressed the fact that, in fact, that we will not, there shouldn't be a problem. Should there be a problem in the future, is there anything the neighbours can do, and this is to the officer, of course, that where we would direct them to make a complaint? Because obviously this is one of the things that is worrying people. They need to know what else they can do. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. If there was a complaint in future, that could be directed and dealt with under the environmental health legislation. In addition, there's the government's clean air strategy coming out soon, which is going to make requirements to use seasoned wood, which should help in emissions in the future. But there are other ways that they could complain and seek some adjustments.
Chairman, are we moving on?
Has time stopped still?
Karen, have we lost our chairman, Karen?
I think so.
It looks like she's still here, but we have lost. It looked like we lost a couple of members a moment ago. I think we lost Councillor Bellows and Councillor Clark. I don't know if they would be able to confirm, and hopefully the chairman will be able to speak as well.
Yes, you did lose me for a moment. I've just got back in. I don't know why.
And similarly for me, I was just the call cut, but I was back sort of within about 20 seconds. But yes, I did lose connection.
Karen, do we have our chairman?
Chairman, it looks like she's in twice, but obviously she's not speaking. Councillor Ward.
She's frozen in time.
Yes, and obviously I have lost a couple of other members as well.
Yes, I was cut out. This is Barry Dunning here. I was cut out and I'm back again.
Oh, so you don't, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah. Everyone was shut down.
Barry, I'm back again.
Oh, okay. Christine, Councillor Ward. It looks like we have still lost her. It might be worth adjourning the meeting.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, hello.
It's unmuted. Yeah, I had to go out and come back in again. I totally lost everything on my screen. So I'm back in.
I've lost a number of members during this particular item. I don't know if it's worth just starting with the officer presentation again so that we confirm that everyone has heard it, because there are at least 4 or 5 members which we have lost during that time, obviously including the chairman.
Okay, well, as I say, I'm back, but I haven't got anything. I've lost anybody that wanted to speak. I've lost all that, so they'll have to type it in again. So if you want to go back to the full, I think everybody received the full presentation though, did they?
Yes, I did hear that before I was kicked.
Yes.
Yes.
So it was during questions, and I think that we were. It went off just before Councillor Benison was going to ask. We had just discussed the chimney. That was Councillor Alan Glass.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're still frozen in the picture, Christine. You're not moving at all.
You're moving around just now.
I can see me moving.
Yes, not frozen on my screen.
No, Chairman, not frozen on mine either. Chairman, did everybody hear the comments that I made about the chimney being on the outside wall of the extension and not the outside wall of the property?
Yes.
Yes, we did. We did.
Judith Garrity came back and said that that was on the extension.
Okay.
I think we were there. We then had Matt. Did you want to say anything? Matt,
Chairman, might I just suggest that you adjourn the meeting and we just reconvene all members and get to the point where you're happy to recommence, if that makes sense, so that you're content to restart this item when we know where we are.
Okay, we'll adjourn this until further information comes available then. Thank you, members. Thank you, members. We had a break there, but we've all come back in. We've established that everybody is present. So we'll go back and we'll have the presentation again from Judith Garrity on 6 Bay Tree Gardens, Marchwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This application relates to 6 Bay Tree Gardens. The application is before committee because of a parish council request. The recommendation is for approval. The application seeks permission for a single-storey side extension, a new boundary wall with landscaping and the use of land as residential garden. The main point of contention relates to the height of the proposed chimney. This is the site. You can see it's located on a prominent corner, larger than most in Bay Tree Gardens. And this is the aerial photograph. This is the block plan, showing the proposal in relation to the neighbouring properties with 3 Arran Court shown here. This shows the existing elevations and the existing block plan. The proposed side extension will be single-storey with a hipped roof and a chimney on the side of the extension. The internal layout precludes the positioning of the chimney against the existing wall of the house, as you can see from the proposed floor plan here. The proposed brick boundary wall would be 2 metres from the road, with planting in front to soften its appearance. This is the side to be extended. Sorry. This is a site viewed from side in the winter. This is the side to be extended. This picture gives an indication of where the chimney will be positioned. This is a picture taken in winter showing the relationship with 3 Arran Court. This is in summer, showing the tree screening provided. Here you can see where the extension would be on the side of the building. The boundary wall would be located behind the trees, which are to be retained with a hedge in front. And finally, you can see the site after entering Bay Tree Gardens from Main Road, with an example of another brick boundary wall next to the highway. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Could you just go back to the slide that shows us where the chimney is, because there were some queries on this, and it is on the new extension.
Yes, I can confirm it's on the edge of the new extension. If I show you on the layout plan, this here where I'm circling around with my cursor, that's the position of the chimney. You can see the chimney breast projecting on the side of the extension. Yeah, I'll just go back to the photograph with the arrow on it, okay, so that you've got that clear. Thank you.
That's very clear. Thank you very much. Do I have any questions for the officer, please? Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you. To make sure everybody got it, I'd like to just clarify my earlier question on the chimney height, because the chimney height is against a single-storey building where the main building is double-storey. So the smoke is going to come out lower than the height of the double building. I know that we haven't had objections from environmental, but thinking of a place that was built very near me with a very similar fitment of a wood-burning stove, when they open up the stove, even with supposedly dried and treated wood, the stove smokes like crazy. So is everybody happy that we have a chimney about half the height of the actual main building? And can we please explain how that is within the rules?
Thank you, Councillor. You can see the chimney on this plan that's now in front of you. It would be on the side of a single-storey extension, and it would be 4.6 metres high. As I said previously, there have been consultations with environmental health, and because of the height in relation to the separation from the main dwelling, there's not considered to be an issue with pooling of smoke or other emissions. So in that respect, there isn't an objection. And building control, in addition, building control have indicated they would accept it in compliance with their regulations.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yes, I'd like to repeat the question that I gave before, which was, should this be built and there is a problem with pollution or smoke from this chimney, what resource or comeback do the neighbours have? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. They would be able to contact environmental health, who have powers to look at any nuisance that's caused. So there are other ways and means for any concerns that arise.
Thank you. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Sorry, Alan really asked my question, but I'm very concerned that chimney is very close to the road and very low and will emit a lot of smoke.
You did just hear a response from Judith Garrity. Were you satisfied with that?
Yes, that's why I said that my question had more or less been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Bennison, did you want to say anything else?
No, Chairman, it was the point that Judith has qualified now, and you did as well. Thank you, Chairman. I'll save my comments till debate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kangarani.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. My question is, obviously, the neighbour may not have an objection about the chimney, but I'm looking at this schematic at the moment. The chimney is actually very close to the skylight windows. Do these windows open up, or just a short windows? Because I can see the smoke going into the house, the extension itself, if the windows are open. Thank you. Can the officer explain that? Whether that's too close to the actual existing windows? Thank you.
Yeah, to reply.
Thank you. The windows that I assume you're referring to are the ones on the side close to the chimney, and they're high level lights only. I understand they would open, but they would be under the control of the applicant and the occupier of the property. So it would be within their control to certainly close them if going into them. But as I say, they're high level ones serving the ground floor space.
Thank you. Can I go to Claire Upton-Brown, please?
Yeah, Chair, I think Judith has largely confirmed this point, but just to reconfirm to the Planning Committee, the technical performance of the chimney is a matter for building regulations and not a planning matter in itself. So providing that this complies with building regulations, and you've heard that the building regulations team have already made comment that this would comply with building regs, then members should be satisfied that the issue of its performance has been dealt with under that legislation. And as a planning committee, and just looking at it in the context of design, impact on street scene, and impact within the overall area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now go to our speakers. Mr. Ian Lawford, who's supporting this application, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Chairman, it's Andrew Kinghorn here. He's submitted a statement which I will read out with your...
Okay, thank you.
So this is a statement from Ian Lawford, Stratton Halt, 2 Erin Court, Marchwood, Southampton. I'm a neighbour living at 2 Erin Court and I'm adjacent to 6 Baytree Gardens. I fully support this planning application 20/10551. The design of the single-storey extension and boundary wall with landscaping is architecturally enhancing and will blend in well with the existing property on the small estate. I have no issues with the chimney that is incorporated with the extension or its use, as I understand it meets the environmental requirements, being placed at sufficient distance from other nearby properties. I want this application to be successful because the occupiers are a young growing family who wish to enjoy their future in the village. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I now have Mrs. Elaine Shivers, who is objecting to the application. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I have no objections to the building. My objection is to the chimney. And what is not taken into consideration by anybody, either, planning or environmental health or anybody else, is the fact that since these properties were built at the back of our property, the wind direction has changed and everything now blows towards our house. That chimney, at the height it is, the chimney top is just below our bedroom window. And so any smoke from that chimney is going to come into our bedroom. I'm a moderate to severe asthmatic, and I have my windows open 24 hours a day because if I don't, I can't breathe at night. Now, this for me is a major health and safety issue because I know that with the wind direction, that smoke is going to come straight into our bedroom. I spoke to environmental health, and environmental health told me they wouldn't object to the chimney, or they couldn't object to it because otherwise it would go to planning appeal. And for me, that's not an excuse not to object to the height of that chimney. It is far too low for that building, and we are going to suffer the consequences of it. I have, we have laws to protect ourselves and to ensure that we have the right to fresh air to breathe at night. And this is going to preclude me from that. We have a log burner, and our log burner is about 6 feet above our chimney. And I know how our log burner blows the smoke out, and at times it can bring it down into Erin Court itself. And our chimney is about how many feet above? About 20 feet above that. Our chimney is about 20 feet above what is being proposed. And we still have had letters of complaint, and we use dry wood, and our chimney has actually been checked by HETUS. So we know there's nothing wrong with our chimney. Sorry. And as a massive asthmatic problem that I have, this is going to exacerbate it. And so for that reason, I object to the chimney, but I don't object to the building itself. And I believe that planning has the right to oppose this chimney health and safety ground. And the Human Rights Act states that I have a right to fresh air to breathe. But that's not going to allow me fresh air to breathe from the way the wind blows towards our property. And it's only happened since those properties have been there. So I would ask that be refused, the chimney be refused, but the rest of it go through. But the chimney, if it was up against the house and it was higher than the house, I'd have no objections.
Thank you, Mrs. Chivers. Before we go to questions from members, can I bring in Claire Upton Brown, please?
Yes. Again, just to reinforce to members, we don't have any technical information supporting the application on how this chimney would perform, and that would be a matter for building control to look at. So just to confirm that point to members again.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, please, from Mrs. Chivers? There's nothing coming up, so I'll go to Mr. Gibbs from Marchwood Parish Council.
Good morning. I represent Marchwood Parish Council as its clerk, and we just want to reiterate our objections are in principle. We have no objection in principle to this application in development terms and how it fits in local and national policies. However, our sole concern raised as an objection is to the height of the chimney as it's currently laid out. We feel that the chimney there's two ways you can go with this. You can ask the applicant to design out the chimney and forego the amenity of a wood burning stove, or you can somehow ask the applicant to design into the chimney greater height. I think that's all I need to say. I mean, it's reiterating our comments earlier on, the planning process through the two meetings that this application was discussed. The concerns of the parish council were pretty consistent. I'm not going to go into any emotive aspect of this. We just feel that the chimney is too low and could be either designed out or greater height designed in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gibbs? There's nothing coming up, so we'll go to debate. Members, we're in debate. Councillor Corbridge.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have absolutely no problem with the design and so on of this extension, and I'm sure it will enhance it. I understand what the Chief Planning Officer has told us about the chimney and about what we can do about the chimney, or what the neighbours can do about the chimney if there indeed is a problem. I have a wood burning stove myself, have done for years. I am not inclined to actually support an application that could build in potential problems. I'm very much in agreement with what the last speaker, Mr. Gibbs, has said, the opinion of the Town Council, that either the chimney should be removed or it should be set at a height that would be no potential problem, although this is actually going to be a bit of an eyesore from the road if this happens. So I am very concerned about this because, yes, of course, there's a recourse to all of us to complain when there's an issue, but we all know that complaining after the event is difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kate Cressell. We seem to have lost Councillor Cressell, so I'll come back to you. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I thought that was a very powerful statement from Mrs. Chivers, and in consequences, I am not going to gamble with this one. I feel there could be a problem with this chimney, and I'm not going to go with the recommendation here. I don't think we can take charge. I don't think there's enough guarantee or evidence that this won't cause a problem. So therefore I'll be voting to reject this application.
Thank you. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I don't know if the Chief Planning Officer can confirm, but essentially here we're looking at whether or not we're going to grant permission for this extension. From what I understand, it is possible to put in a wood burning stove without planning permission. All that's required is to satisfy building controls. So in effect, I'm not quite clear that it's actually within our remit to make a decision on the wood burning stove. It could be installed after the extension is built. My feeling is I'm actually happy to propose that we go ahead and grant in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca Clark. Can anybody second that, please? Who was that?
I will second that. Councillor Riley.
Councillor Riley. Thank you, Joe. Anne Sevier. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was just wondering, obviously this is putting ourselves in a bit of bind, because obviously we have great sympathy for the neighbour. Is it possible to add a condition to the planning application that the head of planning continues a discussion with the applicant on increasing the height of the chimney? Is this something that we could do? This would obviously have to be, Claire would have to give her thoughts on that one, but that might be one way, because we can't refuse it and then it comes back with an extra 3 or 4 feet on the chimney. That would be ridiculous. And as the last speaker said, they can put one in anyway. So I wonder if that might be a way forward, but I'll see what Claire has to say in response to.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Sevier. I mean, it is building control, but Claire Acton-Brown, can you come back on that?
Yes, members, if I can just advise on the points, I can confirm that planning permission isn't required in itself for a wood burner. If the extension were granted permission without a chimney, then a wood burner could be installed at a later date and the flue would not require permission in itself. In terms of can you grant permission and then me effectively amend that application, and that wouldn't be an option that's open to us, because actually what you're being asked to approve is the construction of the chimney at that height. So once you've approved that, that would be what was granted. However, it may be that when the applicant then went into building control, the design might have to be changed for some reason, and I'm not suggesting it would, which would result in an amendment to the planning application. However, given that we have already consulted building control and they have confirmed that this would be something that was acceptable, I would take from that confirmation that the chimney at this height would meet building regulations approval.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Benison. Excuse me. Can I just ask, Mrs. Chivers, could you mute your mic, please? We're getting a lot of background noise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm coughing because of asthma.
Okay. Councillor Sue Bennison, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out to members, this application is in my ward. My ward is Marchwood. I do attend the Marchwood Parish Council planning meetings just to listen. I take no part in those meetings. And when I listen to this one, I think every single councillor was concerned about the height of this chimney. And could I just, I hear what Claire tells us with regard to building regulations, but as a long time user of a wood burning stove, and by that I mean 30 years, heats half of my house with a wood burning stove, the height of that chimney will mean that that chimney will never draw. Chimneys need to be at the point that the smoke comes out at the top higher than the surrounding roofs. Otherwise, you will get smoke coming back down into the house or coming back down at ground level on the outside. Either way, once that chimney is lit in the design and the size that it is, it will not function properly as a chimney. Having said all of that, now, when you fit a new wood-burning stove, it has to be fitted by a HETAS engineer and does have to comply with certain regulations. I'm surprised if those regulations did not take into account the height of a chimney, but that, as Claire has advised us, is not a planning issue. I don't quite know how we deal with this one. Clearly there is a vast amount of objections to the height of this chimney and to the position of the chimney where it is. I feel that somehow we ought to be able to put in some sort of a condition, but I'm hearing that perhaps that is not possible. I go back to our officers and say, what can we do with this application to make it more acceptable as it is? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that. We did have a response from Claire Upton Brown. I will go back to her, but can I just go to Councillor Maureen Holding first? Councillor Holding, you wanted to say something?
Please. Yes, please.
Okay.
I am quite. Is my vision on or not?
No, but we can hear you.
Right, let me put that on as well. Right, I think that should be okay now. I feel that the actual building and the wall is a big improvement on that corner, which I gather is prone to a lot of litter. But I do think that chimney is too low and too close to the road. I'm also concerned for people walking past and for smoke coming out of it, because I think you will get a lot of smoke with it being so low, and especially if the wind is in certain directions. And I feel very, very sorry for the lady next door, because there will be no escape for her with it being just under her window. And I do think that we need to consider her. I very much want to vote for it, but I don't want to vote for this chimney, because I do think it will be a nuisance in many respects. And, you know, building regs, okay, and it could be added at a later stage, okay, but I do not think the planning committee should give it permission, because it is not what people around there want, and it will be a nuisance, and I can't see that the advantages will outweigh the problems, especially when Sue tells us that smoke will come back into their house all the time, and that would be pollution for them as well. So I would ask them to rethink that chimney, please.
Thank you. Can I go back to Claire Upton Brown, please?
Yes. Members, so the question is, what else could you do about it? As a committee, whilst we've heard a lot of anecdotal evidence about how that chimney will perform, we don't actually have any evidence, and therefore I would have to advise the committee that I think it'd be difficult for you to structure a robust reason for refusal in the absence of any actual evidence of this chimney. The potential for this chimney to cause problems in the future. Members, obviously, it's pretty rare that I suggest this to you, members, because your role as a planning committee is to make decisions on planning applications, but it is open to members to actually defer an application and seek an amendment from the applicant to delete the chimney. So that would be an option that would be open to you as a committee. And then the objections would be addressed. So it may be that the matter, if the scheme was amended, didn't need to come back to committee, that it would simply be approved. So,
Chairman, could I propose deferring this application, as Claire has suggested? We have done this once before, members will remember, with a similar application where we deferred it and further information was sought, and that application was actually refused. So I hope that perhaps I would have a seconder to actually defer this application.
I will second that.
Sorry. Can I have one at a time, please?
Christine will.
Christine Hopkins. Okay. So
I thought I would do that. Never mind.
So, Chairman, have I got a seconder to defer this proposal?
You have, Christine Hopkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
I've got quite a lot of names come up on here. I'm just wondering if you're wanting to say anything different, or whether maybe you're going to suggest deferring as well. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If we grant permission for this application, and it does cause problems, and the smoke does come down to the ground, and what recourse would Mrs. Chivers have in the meantime? What can she do if it does happen and we have given permission? I think we should defer, frankly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michael Thierry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Something new, I would hope. If we were to determine this particular application this morning, might I recommend that there is a committee comment attached to the decision notice which reflects the views of members? In other words, if the planning application is passed, attached to that decision must be, in my view, a statement which clearly states the concerns that councillors have made. Otherwise, when it comes to looking at the decision later on, it would appear that we had no further comment to make on that chimney, and that has been the main point of discussion. So I'm looking for a committee comment to be attached to a decision notice should we decide, but I do support a deferment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I also support a deferment, but I still hang on to my first point, which is I'm not sure of the interpretation of the building regs, because this chimney is on the smaller part of the building, which is half the height of the main building. As it only comes up half the height of the main building, if we look at half the height of the main building, therefore I cannot see that it can meet building regs, because it's half the height of the main building it's built for. So I would very much like a comment on this put on there, because I think the extension looks lovely, but that chimney I think would be very unpleasant. And we had a similar case in Holbury where an extension like that had a chimney, and it caused mayhem and took months to be sorted out by the correct authorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Glass. Councillor Kate Crizell.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask to defer about an hour ago, but I lost my mic, so I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani.
Hi. Actually, I was having issue with Claire's statement that there is no clear evidence. I mean, obviously, everybody who have experienced that smoke problem, and we have heard from other councillors, they have experienced it, they have seen it cause problem. That is big enough evidence that that is problem. Unless build a chimney and start lit it up and see what happened, that would be the evidence. But we have to take into account the councillor's experience is also an evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Ring. And this is the last one.
Thank you, Chair. The point I wish to make has already been made. Thank you. So I just really will support the motion to defer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just come back then to Mrs. Elaine Shivers. You have 1 minute to comment.
Thank you very much. As I've already said, I did speak to Environmental Control, and they advised me that if the chimney was built as it stood, I could write to them or contact them, and they would look into it. But the problem is that's a bit like looking at something or sorting something out after the horse is bolted. And I don't want to cause a problem to my neighbours. I have no objections to the building of the extension. My main issue is the chimney, and as you can hear, I suffer from asthma. I have my windows open 24 hours a day to help me to breathe, and that is going to cause me a problem. And I believe I have a right under health and safety legislation or the Human Rights Act to ask that that chimney is not built at that height. If it was built up against the house wall and it came up to the same height as ours, which is about 6 foot above the pitch of that roof, I would have no problems. But where it stands at the moment, that's my objection, and I would ask that that be taken into consideration. I've already been hospitalised once and almost died. I really don't want that to happen again. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Chivers. Mr. Gibbs, you have another minute if you wish it.
This is me, Mr. Gibbs.
Gibbs, yeah.
Yeah, all I'll say is thank you very much for your diligence with this application. I thank you very much for all the time you spent on it. If you do defer and there is a redesign, the Parish Council looks forward to reviewing a subsequent application.
Thank you very much. Members, then we'll go to the vote. So we have a proposal by Councillor Rebecca Clark to defer this application. And that has been seconded by Councillor...
Chairman, I proposed that we defer it.
Sorry, you did. Sorry, you did.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just...
Can I be advised, because we did have a proposal to grant this. So do I have to go through that one first?
Chairman, it's Andrew Kinghorn here. No, Chairman, you don't. You had that motion proposed to grant. There was then a motion to defer, which is an amendment to the main motion, so you can vote on the deferment. I would suggest you just make it clear the purpose of the deferment.
Thank you. So we have this recommendation, proposal from Councillor Benison, seconded by Councillor Christine Hopkins, to defer. And can we have reasons? Do you want to put something in here, Claire Upton Brown?
Yeah, just to confirm that you are deferring to enable officers to go back to the applicant and seek the deletion of the chimney.
Thank you very much. So members will go to the vote to defer. Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Benison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
4.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
4.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
4.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
4.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
4.
Councillor Kangarani.
4.
Councillor Joe Riley.
Against.
Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier?
I will abstain. I've missed part of the discussion, so I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Thierry?
4.
And my vote will be 4. So I think that's a vote to defer. So can you confirm that, please, for me, Karen?
Hello. We've got 15 votes for, 2 against and 1 abstention. So that carries the motion to defer the application.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chairman, could we ensure that we have it back for the next committee meeting if possible?
I can't guarantee that.
No, we did manage it before with the other one where we deferred on exactly the same issue and we did manage to get it back.
Okay, it depends on what's on the agenda. I'm sure they'll do their best anyway to bring it back if they can.
Thank you, Chairman.
So we do have another speaker. We'll have a 2-minute break for the speakers to change over. Stroke 10431, St Mary's Church, Church Street, Fordingbridge, and this is on page 33 of your agenda. Did we have interest on this one? Karen, can you confirm, are there interests on this one?
No, there weren't, and no members have indicated that they've got an interest now.
Okay, fine, thank you. Then,
yes, I was just going to say neither of us are on the town council, so we have not been involved with the discussion on this in advance. Should I declare the fact that I have many of my ancestors in the graveyard? That's the only other question. But they're dead now, so they probably doesn't matter.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't think they'll have much to say. Okay, can I go to Kate Cattermole then? And can you please give your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Right, this is the application for St Mary's Church at Fordingbridge. The proposal is to re-roof the nave and the tower and reline the gutters on the chancel and the chapel with turn-coated stainless steel. The recommendation is to approve. The reason it's come to committee is there's a contrary view with the statutory consultee, Historic England. Whoops, sorry. Right. The site of the St Mary's Church is a Grade 1 listed building, and it's in the Fordingbridge Conservation Area. The application before you is only a planning application. There is no requirement for a listed building application because it's exempt due to the fact it has an ecclesiastical exemption due to the fact it's a place of worship. This is a different process. It's a two-stage process. The Diocese Advisory Committee have to give agreement, which they have done in this case, for the use of turn-coated stainless steel. And then a faculty has to be obtained, which is in process. Right, this is the aerial shot, which shows the position of the church. As you can see, it's surrounded by properties on three sides. However, there is some seclusion to the site as well with the depth of the churchyard. And you can see the pink line across is the right-of-way that crosses the site. Right, this next plan is very useful because it shows the areas that would be affected by the proposal. A indicates the nave roof, B is the tower, and C and D are the areas of the gutters which are to be relined on the chancel and the chapel. And this is a more detailed plan. Right, we've got the areas that to be have the lead removed and be replaced with the turn-coated stainless steel is the dual pitch steep nave roof and the tower, and these are the north gutter and the south gutter. As you will see from this plan, on the north aisle roof and the north porch roof, these are already turn-coated stainless steel. The quinquennial survey of 2018 has identified the lead covering on the nave and the tower has come to the end of its life. However, you will also note on the south aisle roof, this is currently lead, and there's no reason at this stage to replace this because this is in good condition. Right, this is the nave roof from the southern side of the building and the north, and this shows the tower, and this shows the condition of the gutters. Right. St Mary's Church is a Grade 1 listed building dating from the 12th century with extensions and alterations in the 13th and the 15th century, and it was restored early in the 20th century. The existing lead roof does date from the 20th century. Historic England have published guidance advocating the use of turn-coated stainless steel as recently as February this year. They suggest it when a lead roof is at the end of its life and lead theft has occurred. Historic England, turn-coated stainless steel is considered a durable alternative to lead, having a lower scrap value, and is harder to remove due to its thickness. However, in this case, even though guidance supporting the use of turn-coated stainless steel has been published by Historic England, they are objecting. The reasons for their objection in this case is the prominence of the nave roof with its steep pitch, and the fact that turn-coated steel would have a shiny finish. Furthermore, in their view, the risk of theft is reduced by reason of the church's prominent position and the fact that the thefts were over 10 years ago. Therefore, they have identified that the proposal would result in less than substantial harm to the building. Therefore, in this case, the identified harm needs to be weighed against the public benefit. The use of turncoated stainless steel would provide protection against future thefts, and even though the church is in a prominent position, it has been attacked before. Also, the use of removing the lead roof, so reducing the threat of theft, would also protect the interior of the church. As you can see, the ceiling of the nave is very attractive and a feature of the church and has historic significance. It has been attacked before. Also, we've got water ingress, and as you can see, there's been some previous water damage. We also need to consider the further cost of replacing a lead roof in the event of this is stolen, which would have to be borne by the church community. Even though turncoated stainless steel would have a shiny finish when first installed, it has a coating which oxidizes, resulting in a dull finish. The shine should be lost within weeks and then gradually dull down to a darker tone over a few months. Therefore, the view is that the public benefit from replacing the lead roof with turncoated stainless steel would outweigh the less than substantial harm that Historic England have identified. And this is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Is muted. Councillors, do you have questions, please? I've got Councillor Maureen Holding. I've been muted.
Sorry, Christine, it's not a question for now, it's to speak later on. Thank you. Councillor Kangarani.
My question is, I have actually 2 points to make. One is that it's a listed building. If you chip away bits from it, would that actually degrade the listing? I think if you want to, I don't know how you make the listed building number 1 or 2 or 3. How do you actually, I'm not how to phrase that. If we take the bits off, would that become less listed building? Because now it doesn't comply with the definition of a listed building. And then second question is anybody living in the property at the moment? Because 10 years ago there was a theft. Maybe that was empty at the time. Do we have anybody living in there at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I bring in Claire Upton-Brown, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of whether or not the change in the historic fabric of the building affects the listing, the answer is no. As a planning committee, you at the moment are dealing with a planning application because, as Kate has explained, Grade 1 listed churches have exclusive exemption from listed building consent. So in planning terms, you are considering whether or not the proposed different material would be acceptable to this building in planning terms. As Kate has explained, Historic England, whilst they're objecting to this specific application, in their own guidance, promote the material that you're being asked to grant planning permission for as an appropriate alternative material to a building of Grade 1, Grade 2 star or Grade 2. So there would be no implications for the listing of this building were the material changed. Just in terms of is anybody living in the building, it is actually a church, so it isn't a dwelling, it's a church. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Although I'm in favour of this because I know the material and I think a lot of people wouldn't notice the difference after a couple of weeks, have we any other examples of this material being used in the New Forest area? Just to allow people to see it.
I can answer that. We have approved turncoated stainless steel to my knowledge, in 2 locations. One is Rockbourne Church, and also more recently at Dameron, but I believe that hasn't yet been completed. I think works are underway. Thank you.
Rockbourne's beautiful. Thank you.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. We have heard that this new material, whilst it will be rather bright when it's first put on, will tone down. This roof is in a very prominent position. Unlike the roof that has already been used, you can't really quite see that roof from the ground. But my question is, if in the fullness of time it were that this new material did not tone down and appeared rather garish, is there a route back to the lead covering?
If I can just say, this turn-coated stainless steel has a coating on it, which when it oxidizes, it does dull down. So I'm not aware if there's been any examples when it wouldn't. It's not an exact science as how long that would take. And obviously, when first installed, it is likely to be very shiny. But I have sought advice on this, and I've been informed that the shiny appearance should sort of go off relatively within a few weeks, and then it dulls down within a few months. But I think that's probably atmospheric conditions, I would imagine, would help with the oxidization. Thank you.
My question really was, if that were not to be the case, is there a route back to returning it to lead?
I think that's a very costly business. I don't think that that's something we can even consider in this application. I think we have to take it as it is and vote on this application we have in front of us. If I can just move on to Councillor Anne Bellows, please.
Yes, hello, Chairman. I just wanted to say in answer to Sue Bennison that this does oxidize really quickly, because the church roof at Dameron has been done, and I walk there all the time, and I've never even noticed. I've never thought, wow, that's really shiny. It just looks to me how it used to look.
Yeah.
And I was okay. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. And I've seen your message, and I will come to you in debate. I go now to Mr. Ian Newman from the parish of St Mary Fordingbridge. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, I think we're currently on the phone with him, unless he speaks now. It looks like he's in the meeting.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, for allowing me to make this presentation to the members of the...
Thank you. Are you going to go ahead?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can you go ahead, please?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. The church is a splendid example of medieval craftsmanship. The church is a splendid example of medieval craftsmanship, with additions from every century thereafter. It was always an important parish within the Diocese of Winchester. There was a major restoration from 1903 to 1906, when this Edwardian lead roof was installed. At the time, the church was put back to its medieval splendour. Another major restoration followed between 1971 and 1983. It is this roof, the Edwardian one, which has now failed. We are a vibrant and outreaching community in the locality. We are proud of our heritage and wish to make this even more available to local people and visitors who we have from all over the world. This would include 4 internal and 1 external state-of-the-art movable digital display lecterns to enable the visitor to understand the church architecture and its relevance in each century. But before any of this can be done, the roof of the nave needs repair to protect the ancient fabric. The Lady Chapel and the chancel both had lead roofs, were tiled in the 1970s and early 80s because of the weight of the lead failures, weight of the lead sheets themselves. The lead roofs of the north porch and the whole of the north aisle, together with sections of the nave roof behind the tower, were stolen in 2008 and more in 2009 in broad daylight, which caused years of disruption to us. The resulting cost of the replacement was £65,000, which nearly crippled us over 5 years and had to be our main focus of fundraising. The Winchester Diocesan Chancellor, following advice from the Winchester DAC, has permitted turncoat, as this oxidises to look like lead, but with very little scrap value. It is with this that we wish to cover the lead now. Despite Historic England's own guidelines issued in 2020, February of this year, we are puzzled as to why they are now objecting to the treatment of our roof using this medium, especially as they recommend it. The architect of the 1970s restoration, very good point, in a statement which reads, "In each generation the church has been restored, refurbished and improved with materials of the day and is part of the social history of our country. We want to make this historic asset available to all, using the most appropriate heritage materials from the 21st century. However, as the roof is leaking, this must be our very first part of the journey."
Thank you, Mr. Newman. You have had your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Members, does anybody have questions for Mr. Newman? I can't see any coming up. In that case, we're going to debate. And the first person on my list for debate is Councillor Anne Sevier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Ian, for explaining how important the church is to Fordingbridge. And I don't wish to cut short this debate, but I went online and looked at the listed buildings, why it was listed, and I'm fascinated to find about Queen Post and hammer roofs and everything else. And the only mention was, all it said was it's lead and tile, the roof. So the roof itself does not appear to be an important part of the listing of this church. We can't afford to lose it. As you all know, I'm a great historical building, listed building hugger. So we need to look after this, particularly as my ancestors are in the graveyard there, and I don't want them to lose out either. Sorry about the joke. And so therefore, I'd like to ask that we approve this application, because I can find no reason not to. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I would like to second that,
please?
Madam Chairman.
Sorry, you're all... Who was that?
Could I second?
Barry.
Maureen Holding.
I was going to say,
Okay, Maureen Holding again.
Could I second it, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Holding. We do have that.
Thank
do you want to say something, Councillor Holding?
Yes, I would, please. I think it's such a pity that these days we have to think all the time about theft of lead and things like this from beautiful buildings like this one, because it is absolutely lovely, and I think we must do the very best we can to help them. And quite honestly, I think this oxidized stainless steel is really the best solution, because if it has very little scrap value, it means that they'll not have all the problems with leakage. And 65,000, what an awful lot of community money had to be raised, which is so sad. So yes, I wish I had 3 votes on it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holding. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I propose that we do the officer's recommendation and grant this. I am also puzzled why Historic England came out against it. I don't know what their reasons are exactly, but common sense must prevail at the end of the day. And I would like to propose that we grant what's on the paper.
Thank you very much. That has been proposed. Councillor Michael Thierry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be extremely brief. While I am grateful to Historic England for the advice and the comment that they make on St Mary's Church, I am reminded of the fact that what they are presenting to us is purely advisory. It is not mandatory. And so therefore we do have the opportunity not to accede to their particular wishes in this respect. However, I would like to acknowledge the comments that they have made. They are of value, but I do believe that in terms of public interest, it is right that this particular planning application should be approved without any dissension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Barry Dunning up here twice. Do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I was going to say, what a lovely church. TCSS is the standard roof to replace lead. It tarnishes very quickly, and also, of course, it has far less value, so it has less chance of being stolen. So I do recommend that we approve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Kangarani, and that will be the end of the debate.
Thank you. Thanks for the effort. Actually, I'll just clarify something. When I said that if anybody lives in the church, I understand nobody lives in a church, but there is a vicarage nearby, and the vicar might have a Cheston building living in it. That was my sort of point that I was going to make. Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Thank you very much. That's the end of the debate. I'll come back to Mr. Ian Newman. You have 1 minute if you wish to say anything else. I think maybe we've lost him.
He is there, but I don't know if he's... oh, his microphone's on mute, so hopefully...
Mr. Newman, can you hear us? Do you have anything else to say?
I would like to thank you, Madam Chairman, and your committee for what seems to me that you are agreeing with our precept.
Thank you very much. In that case, we'll go to the vote. So the recommendation is to grant, and that's being proposed by...
Hello. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and to your committee. We can...
Thank you. We can't hear you anymore, Mr. Newman, but thank you for your contribution. We are now going to vote on the matter. So I'm going to vote. If you'd like to mute your phone, thank you. So we have a proposal to grant as recommendation by Councillor Anne Sevier, seconded by Councillor Maureen Holden. So all of those, I'll go down the list, sorry, to vote. Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand. We'll go back to Councillor Brand. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
4.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
4.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holden.
4.
And Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Are we all muted?
I don't know what's happened. Christine Ward was talking and then she cut out. I don't know if everyone else has had that.
No, I'm still here. This is Annie.
Yeah, still here, but Christine cut out.
Christine disappeared. I don't know what happened.
Yes,
I'm still here.
we can't hear
Still here.
Christine Ward.
No,
She's just come back in again by the looks.
no, I can't see her yet.
Perhaps Councillor Hopkins can take over.
No, she's not there either.
Perhaps, Sue Benison then.
Is Christine Hopkins here?
No, she's not answering. But Christine Ward is just trying to get back in, isn't she?
Christine Hopkins has been waiting to get in for ages.
Right, I suggest we adjourn for the time being until we can get everyone back again.
Barry Dunning back again.
Okay.
For anybody that is watching this, we have had some technical problems. We were in the middle of voting and we lost some of our councillors. We're all back online now. So I'll take the vote again. The vote is to grant the application for St Mary's Church, Church Street, Fordingbridge. That application to be granted was proposed by Councillor Anne Sevier and seconded by Councillor Maureen Holding. So we'll go to the vote again. Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Benison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
I think she has left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
4.
Councillor Kate Crazell.
4.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
4.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
4.
Councillor Kangarani.
4.
Councillor Joe Riley.
4.
Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
And Councillor Anne Sevier.
4.
Councillor Michael Thierry. Councillor Michael Thierry, do we have you? It would seem not. My vote is 4. I think it's pretty unanimous.
Yes, I can confirm that's unanimous.
Yeah, okay then. Thank you everybody for that one. I'm sorry about the technical breakup. But we'll now go to our last application, which is 172 Stem Lane, New Milton. Can I just ask everybody to mute? I'm getting a lot of background noise. It may be the presentation, I don't know. Okay, 172 Stem Lane, New Milton, application 20/101467, and this is on page 21 of the agenda. There are no speakers on this one. So if we just go straight to Kate Cattermole, please, for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, this application is for alterations to a dwelling to create first floor accommodation. It would be hip to gable alterations on the side elevation of the existing dwelling, front dormers and a rear extension. The recommendation is to approve. The reason it's come before committee is there is an objection from New Milton Town Council. They're concerned about the gable ends resulting in proposal being out of character and having detrimental impact on the street scene, contrary to the New Milton local distinctiveness. Right, as you can see, this is the application site outlined in red. It's in the built-up area of New Milton and it fronts Stem Lane. Right, this is the aerial shot. The application site sits within a row of hipped roof dwellings, some of which have had alterations to allow first floor accommodation and extensions to the rear. As you can see, this block plan shows the increase in the footprint. It would be no deeper than neighbouring properties. And this is the existing hipped roof bungalow, which is quite a modest property, only having 2 bedrooms. And this is the proposal. As you can see, it shows the hip to gable alterations, which could actually be achieved as permitted development, as there is no increase in the overall height of the dwelling. It would be matching materials, and the hip to gable would be under 50 cubic metres increase. However, there are other parts of this proposal, which it's an integral part of, so therefore it all falls to be considered, though the permitted development fallback situation is relevant. And this is the floor plan. This is the ground floor plan. And the first floor plan, as you can see, it would be not a massive building, and it's sort of following extensions, and it would be sort of appropriate for a modern sized family. And this is the existing hipped roof bungalow. And this is it within the street scene, and this is looking to the north. As you can see, hipped roof forms have been retained on other properties that have had extensions to create first floor accommodation. Dormers are a feature. And here we are looking to south, and as you can see, even though there have been alterations and it is proposed to create gable ends, the extensions would still respect the recessive front roof form, which would be characteristic of the neighbouring properties. Furthermore, the proposed front dormers would be appropriate to the size of the roof slope and would allow the recessive roof form still to be read within the street scene. As you can see on this property 2 doors down, extended ridge lines again are a feature, projecting back into the site. And as we've already noted, dormers are also a feature of neighbouring properties. And then these last 2 slides just show the properties to the rear. As you can see, there have been extensions which have altered the rear elevations. There are no neighbour amenity issues identified with this application. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, it looks like Christine Ward has lost connection.
That's very unfortunate.
I'm going to suggest that we adjourn and make sure we get everyone back again, because I think a couple of other members have dropped out, and then maybe if we can go through the presentation again.
Again, I have to apologise for those that are viewing online. We're having quite a few technical problems again. We all seem to be back now, so we will go for the presentation again on 172 Stem Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the application for 172 Stem Lane. This is an application to alter the dwelling to create first floor accommodation, including hip to gable alterations on the side elevations of the existing dwelling, front dormers and rear extension. The recommendation is to approve the application. The reason it's come forward to committee is there's an objection from New Milton Town Council. Their concerns are the gable ends result in proposal being out of character and having detrimental impact on the street scene, contrary to New Milton local distinctiveness. Right, as you can see, this is the site plan outlined in red. It's in the built-up area of New Milton, fronting Stem Lane. This is the aerial shot. As you can see, it's within a row of hipped roof dwellings, some of which have had alterations to allow first floor accommodation and extensions to the rear. And then we've got the block plan, which shows the increased footprint. It's deeper than the neighbouring it's no deeper than the neighbouring properties. Right, this is the plans of the existing bungalow. As you can see, it's a modest 2-bedroom detached bungalow. And this is the proposal. It shows the hip to gable alterations. I must just point out this this alteration, hip to gable on the sides, could actually be achieved as permitted development, as there is no increase in the overall height. It would be of matching materials, and the hip to gable alteration would not exceed 50 cubic metres in increase. However, this change is an integral part of a much more involved application, including front dormers and a rear extension. So therefore, it falls all to be it all falls to be considered. But obviously, the permitted development fallback position is relevant in this situation. And this is the ground floor, and as you can see, the first floor, it would only have 3 bedrooms at the first floor. It's not an excessively sized property for a modern family. This is the existing bungalow. This is looking to the north of the site. As you can see from this, the hipped roof. The bungalows that have been extended have retained their hipped roof form. They've achieved it by either extending backwards or, and also with dormers. And this is looking to the south. Even though this proposal would lose the hipped roof form, as already noted, the works could be done to change roof form as permitted development. But what is important to note is that regardless of that change, the roof form would still be recessive, which is in common with neighbouring properties. The front dormers that are proposed are appropriate in size to the roof slope and would still allow the recessive form to be read within the street seam. Extended ridge lines, as you can see on the property 2 doors down, as I'm indicating with the cursor now, is a feature as well of neighbouring properties, and that would have the dwelling extending back into the plot. And the last 2 images are just showing the rear of the neighbouring properties. As you can see, this also shows alterations that have been done to the rear in conjunction with first floor accommodation, and there are no issues identified with regards to neighbour amenity. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Before I go to members' questions, Karen, I didn't declare an interest. I think Councillor Hawkins as well. So I declare an interest as a member of New Milton Town Council, but not on planning.
Thank you. Does Councillor Hawkins want to declare his one?
I did at when we started the meeting, I declared an interest that I wouldn't take part in this as I'm on the planning committee.
Okay, thank you. So questions then for Kate. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. Could we go to chart 38 and the proposed south elevation? That's a gable end, isn't it? That's the rear extension. Am I looking at this correctly?
No, that the proposed east elevation is the rear elevation. Obviously,
Oh,
the
okay.
side is that would be the hip to gable on the side.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that clarification. And then could we just go to chart 45? I'm noticing that the parish council object to the gable end, but I think that shows a couple of gable ends on the adjoining property. So it's already there on adjoining properties. So I really can't quite see how we could object to it on this one. Am I understanding that correctly?
If I could just comment, I was of the understanding New Milton's comments was more to do with the loss of the hip roof form with the side gables, because obviously the other alterations, as you can see from the earlier ones here, even though we've got some alterations, they have all maintained their hip roof form. So I think it's, I understood their objections to be with the gables going onto the side.
The dormers.
The dormers are going to be on the front. Let's just go back to the plans.
Yeah.
So we've got dormers on the front. We're going hip to gable on the side, and then they're putting in a gable at the rear as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, are there any more questions? If not, we'll go to debate. So, members, do you wish to debate this? Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to propose what's on the paper and to grant this application.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Tony Ring, Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chair. Sue just got in a bit quicker than I did there. In view of all that we've heard from New Milton councillors about many aspects of what's going on there, I'm surprised that that there has been an objection from them, and I was going to either propose or second to grant. I can't see any reason why not.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Yes, I think this is a great improvement on what is there, and it will give lovely accommodation, so I support it fully.
Thank you. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree with Councillor Holding and with Councillor Ring. I think it's a vast improvement on what's there currently, and I think we should grant approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't see any more names coming up. I know we've had disruption during this, but I think we've all seen the presentation and heard the audio, and I think it's okay for us to go ahead and vote now. So the proposal is to grant, and we've had that proposed by Councillor Arthur Davies and seconded by Councillor Benison. So we'll go to the vote to grant. Councillor Ann Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand. I don't think we have her, do we?
I can't vote because I missed the presentation.
Okay, fine, thank you. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
She's gone.
Gone. Okay. Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
I'm not
voting.
voting.
No, okay. Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Kangarani.
For.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier. Councillor Sevier.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
He's left the meeting. I can't see his name present.
Okay, and I'm for, so I think that's unanimous.
Yes, I can confirm it is. So that carries the motion to grant.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you everybody. It's been quite a trying morning, and it has gone on for quite a while, what with the technical problems, and we did have a long debate over Victoria Cottage, but I think we needed to do that. So thank you all again, and I think we'll be seeing you for the special meeting.
Shall I open the door? Lunch will be delivered now? Or
Yeah, is lunch coming?
is lunch coming or not?
Have you got time to make it before the next meeting?
Well done, Chair.
I have
Well
a
done, Chair.
Well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you, Chris.